to what type of control might exist for a country, okay? So we were talking, and now I'm going to talk. We were talking about our whiteboard game that it turns out was pretty effective, and we've learned something from it. And the whiteboard game came from this Thomas Hobbes guy and his ideas about all of this stuff. And so we explained that he had this idea that everybody was evil, essentially. Everybody was selfish. Everybody wanted what they could take, and they did. That when you have that, his idea was that it amounted to war. There was no peace. You could never just feel at peace and secure that what you had and what you had collected you could keep or have as yours. And so he called that force and fraud. Oh, also, sorry, I have to do this. You guys didn't believe me yesterday when I said that I knew the creator of Instagram.
You probably photoshopped him.
Now you're sounding like Mr. Adam Dow, who likes to harass me in class. I don't know. Not now. Now I don't remember. How do I? No, it's not like this. I have to think about how to get back to.
If you reply to your comment
when it's on here.
But if he messaged you privately.
No, it wasn't a private message. He just responded. He actually responded to Ava, so I don't want messages. I don't want messages though. Oh, okay. So Ava asked him, and I asked on her behalf, right? I said, sitting here in my Social 10 class with my students, telling them about the days of old when I knew the guy who later would create Club Penguin. My student here wants to know who wears shoes in a hammock, hope things are well. And then I also replied and said, P.S. We were discussing social contract theory as it relates to game theory. We were talking about Hobbes, his idea about force and fraud, which I said would make a good board game name. That led to bringing you up, who has developed many games online and in board game format. They didn't believe me that I knew you, so here we are. Comments added, they admire the lush lifestyle you seem to lead through your pictures. So he said, Ava, why do penguins use jackhammers to bake cakes? I don't know. It's nonsense, but he said, thanks for reconnecting anyway. So, ha! The point of that is ha. So, are we good now?
Yeah.
Why would someone use a jackhammer to bake?
I know, it was a nonsense question that we posed to him, kind of, so he just threw a nonsense question back. Did you use a jackhammer in the game? So maybe it was game related. I guess we're not a fan. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to get through this. We're talking about Hobbes, and Hobbes is really the guy that started any of this kind of real political thinking, so it's important that we understand him. So if you continue with me with these notes, and we had just done before the end of the bell, and again, you're going to take some notes today, but I promise it'll just be today and it'll get better quickly. So there's no such thing as ownership, he thought. There's no real possession, since others have the right to take whatever you want, right? Which means that no one is safe. And what we mean by that is no one is safe to live out their life. You risk death every day if everyone can take what they want, right? If it's a condition of war, he said. If there's no ownership or a right to claim anything, that somebody else has to respect that claim, then that means that you're not safe to just live out your natural life. You're in danger of violence. You're in danger, Will Robinson. You're in danger of death by violence. What a world to live in. Yeah, you weren't here for this yesterday. So there is a recorded video that you'll be able to follow along with. But if you think about the game that we played, because you were here for that, he's talking about a world like the game that we were in, where there was no leadership or real controlling authority. There was no structure or set of rules, right? And so when we talk about that social contract, this is the rules for how to live in society, right? What citizens do, what government provides, order and protection. But in the whiteboard game, there was no order and protection. And in some societies, there was no order, right? It was chaos, like in the game. So we're connecting it to the game, okay? And in that kind of environment, nobody is safe. Anybody is in danger of their life from violence. I'm going to move on to page 2, if I can. Or the next part here. So he had a solution. The solution is a central he thought if there's a government that is a centralized body that takes responsibility and can be respected, a central authority can create rules and order. And then it would be a much safer world to live in. You wouldn't risk death. It wouldn't be war, right? So, if a person believed they could gain peace and protection if they gave up their right to everything, which is the society they were living in. Anything is mine. If you could convince citizens that they could live in peace if they gave up that idea of, I'll take what I want, then everybody could live with as much freedom as they wanted. If we had done something like this before COVID, I might have just said, in this classroom, you literally can take the jacket off Lucas's back if you really wanted it, because it's winner take all, like no holds barred, and it would be a clawing to the injury thing to get that water bottle and to get that backpack, right? And you would take it and claw away it and do all that stuff because everybody could get anything, right? Because there's no control and no chaos. But if I could convince the rest of you then, if we all just accepted that we're going to be content with our freedom and let someone else have their freedom, we respect each other and our rights, then we could live more peacefully, and wouldn't that be a more comfortable way to live, right? So that's what he thought. If there's no threat from other, then it's a type of freedom, right? No threat. From others is equals a type of freedom to be desired. And remember, this is all about paradigms. It's what you think and value in the world, and freedom should be something called that's desired. This idea here is the social contract that we've already learned a little bit about. Okay? He didn't give it this term, but this is what it amounts to. Now, if you recall, there were 5 things that everybody could take or get access to. Do you remember what the first one was? Freedom of speech. He set some things as being more valuable or more worthy of protecting. He wanted to see everyone have those things, as long as they were willing to give up rights to other lesser things. Sam?
Freedom of religion.
Freedom of religion was another one. Yeah?
Freedom of privacy.
Was privacy or property?
Access to property.
Access to property. Privacy would come with property, right? That you have a home and you have some space. So the priorities were to protect the first 4. So he set those 4 as being aside and said that if you create a central authority or a governing party over you, then they could promise you these things would be protected, right? So no one will threaten these anymore. So we could go like this. Okay, if property, yeah, it should say property. Sorry, Jaden, thanks for. They could have a pretty guaranteed protection of those 4 things if they gave up the other individual freedoms to a central deciding power. A government. But it only works if everybody agrees to this, right? Because if this side of the room is going to agree to abide by the rules set out by a governing party or a decision maker, but this side of the room says, no, we're not going to listen to them, we're still going to take what we want, injure who we want, enslave who we want, then it doesn't work. It has to be that everybody in that society or group has to accept the terms of this agreement, right? That all of these things can be protected if you're going to give up the other individual freedoms to a central deciding power or a government, so long as everyone agrees. Okay? And the other ones were, number 5 was taxing others or taking property. That means individuals can't do that anymore, but the government can. And you can't punish others or imprison them. But again, the government can. So if they gave up the other individual freedoms, which are these, so it's kind of one of those, like, it's called quid pro quo. Have you ever heard of that phrase, quid pro quo? Some of you? Do you think you know what it means? Somebody over here nodded yes. Do you think you know what it means? No? Quid pro quo, get something for something. You can get these up here and be protected with them if I get these from you, right? Or the rights to regulate these, or something like these. And so in this agreement then, government then uses these rights, number 5 and 6, to protect the other rights, numbers 1 to 4. Punish or imprison them. Yeah. So that makes sense, right? I see the logic in that. Does anybody else see the logic? You have a lot greater security in life if you give up some individual freedoms to government, right? But again, on that sliding scale of left to right, not everybody agrees with that or agrees with what they have to give up to government, right? Like our barbecue restaurant owner in Ontario, his GoFundMe page yesterday was up to 130,000.
What was that, Ms. Walker?
So it was a restaurant owner in Ontario, and after Ontario's health ministry had issued closures of restaurants or restrictions that they could only be at half capacity, everyone had to be masked coming in or things like that. His response, like on social media, he put out there that he was not going to follow those rules because he didn't recognize the authority of his government to inflict that type of restriction. And so then people in the community were watching, was he going to actually go through with it? And he did. He had full capacity. That meant that customers went to his restaurant expecting he would be open despite the restrictions placed on that restaurant. And so when the community members called the police to report that he was breaking the bylaw, breaking the law, and nothing really happened in the first day. The restaurant was full. Nobody was really masked. It was just status quo. There were protesters that were supporting him and his right to defy government's intrusion in his life and business. And the comment that was made in the media was that the premier in Ontario, Ford, said, you got to follow these rules because we got to get these numbers down. But I do get this guy's position because he's a small business owner, and we know that this is hurting them. So he played to both sides, and so there was criticism that as the decision maker for the province, you need to say, I need everyone to fall in line and agree to these terms. And so the next day, the same thing happened. He reopened, despite he wasn't penalized the first day, but he reopened the next day and then even the day after. And police came, they escorted him out in handcuffs. There was more clashing between protesters and supporters. They actually closed his restaurant and changed the lock. Got a locksmith to lock him out. And they penalized him. They gave him a bunch of fines for being open in violation of the order. So he has probably a court trial that he needs to appear before a judge where the penalty will be determined. And so that means money that he needs to collect to pay those legal fees. But all those other people that disagree with this idea that government can have rights over certain parts of your life so long as you are promised security of the others, those people are supporting his right to protest, which is where this 130,000 from just regular people across Canada or maybe even outside of Canada have donated. So it's a perfect example of that. The barbecue restaurant guy. I should just get his name, but I think you guys will remember it. This is in your notes. One day you'll look back on this and be like, barbecue restaurant guy. But defying government orders because he does not acknowledge the authority or intrusion. Yeah, and there are lots of cases like that, right? So, Locke was just one guy that had thoughts about this stuff. And I'm sorry, I can't really think of a more interesting way to share this information with you rather than to just kind of go through a bunch of these philosophers. Play the whiteboard game again? It's 1:30. What if you gave me 25 minutes And then the rest of that class time could be the whiteboard game again. Is that a good bargain if we're bargaining? I mean, he didn't have to ask for it, and I didn't have to say yes, but you could get that much time. What? Is that okay? Sam, you're such an interesting person. Actually, let's. What did you say?
I bet that's what the doctor said
we actually, if you come down to this part here, yeah, I've given you lots of space to write. I just want to write this down here, for example. Under or over here on the side, you could write down monarchy. Do you know what a monarchy is?
You might have heard of it, but I don't know exactly.
Monarchy is like king,
Yep.
sort of thing.
Yep, king and queen. I'm just going to give you the basics of these just to kind of start, and then we'll talk about something here. So we said, okay, there's 24 minutes on this clock, okay? There is something called a monarchy. There is something called, well, we know about this, democracy is under John Locke. There is another one here for Rousseau, and this one is called a direct democracy, which is a bit different than a democracy. Switzerland is a direct democracy. Hobbes is the first guy, and he was monarch. He supported the idea of a monarchy. When you're talking about a controlling power, if you think people are evil, you don't want a controlling power that might listen to those evil ideas or have corrupt ideas as well. You would want a monarchy who you think is God-inspired, right? A lot of the monarchs believe that they were placed in that lineage by God, so it was God's intention that they ruled. On further down here, there's another one called Voltaire, and he also had an idea of elected well, actually, no. He had an idea of a monarchy government. So a little bit different, another interpretation. And then there's this guy, Karl Marx, which some of you may have heard of Karl Marx. And he believed in communism. It was all about the workers, not about that base. Alexa, did you get that one? Yes, she got it.
What is Voltaire?
Voltaire was a monarchy government.
What about the first? Yeah, what about the first guy?
Oh, Plato.
Plato.
Usable play, nothing.
I'm just going to put down here absolute authority. How about that? Like me in this classroom. It's getting towards the end of the week and the jokes are getting sour. But let's practice democracy right now, and I think you're all familiar with democracy. Democracy is an idea that majority can rule. And just to bring it back to the charter, we have a charter so that democracy doesn't rule, or the majority, so that the majority doesn't rule. The white, privileged majority, Christian majority, male majority, right? We have a charter to kind of offer balance and equality to the other groups that haven't had privilege. That's going back to that. Democracy. Everyone in this room is going to get a vote. And I need an answer from you, or consensus really is what it's called, of whether or not you want to create a Christmas entertainment video to be shared this year digitally. And those of you that are part of SLT will know that this is a discussion coming. You know, when we do the Christmas feast, every year each grade does some type of performance. Last year we were tired of the digital stuff and we wanted everyone to perform something live, and so you did on the stage. But it also then meant that you had time to be with your separate class, to like go plan something or create something and all of that stuff. And we have a lot more limitations now. So you discuss among yourselves, and I'll include, you know, Christopher and Alexa. You guys can, your volume is up here. You can add your comments as well. Anybody?
As a teen, they thought that if some people didn't want to do it from each grade, they don't have to, but then people that do want to could just do a video.
Okay, so not an all or nothing?
And it can be both grades if they want to work together or just one.
Sure.
It's cohort kind of work.
Sure. Okay, so then if that's the case, who is in? Is it going to be an all-girl thing?
Maybe.
No.
Do you know what that says about,
Are we gonna have an actual book?
do you know what that says about gender differences?
I think this is, I don't know.
It always has to be.
No, let's just talk about that for a second. If the vote is if the vote is split specifically between males and females, that females want to and males don't, it can't be a behavior or a thing that you kind of shake your head to and say, oh, it's always about guys and girls. It's literally about guys and girls. I'm just curious, what do you think motivates them to want to do it?
I know it motivates me not to do it.
Okay. I'd like to hear both, an answer to both, actually.
I don't have an honest answer.
Thanks.
I don't want to say it.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. It's a safe environment, Jaden.
Dude, just let her rip,
I
bud.
don't want to offend anybody.
You're not.
We've been here before, but we've talked about this.
It's lame.
Okay. You don't even know what they might have come up with. You could have made something
Maybe
that
if
wasn't
there are
lame.
ideas, people would actually want to do it, but
Whoever wants to do my idea, like, I've done that for the last 2 years. Like, I just say something and they're like, oh, you didn't say anything. I'm just gonna.
if it wasn't a good idea.
Sledding, that's what we should do.
Yeah, we throw those.
No bills.
Is that a compromise that maybe the girls in the group might say, that you want the boys to be involved and to take an interest in things? And maybe you let, maybe this time you say you'd be really open to something? Yes.
Why couldn't you have sledding in this?
Yeah.
This is the thing about,
It can be
doing it
recorded
online.
outside.
You could be Santa saving the day, flying away on your sled, like honestly, or chasing after a reindeer.
Okay, GoFundMe page. I need 10 grand. for sled. I need a new sled.
I'm on it, boy, dude.
Skidoo.
Oh, he's thinking skidoos, not sleds.
I was thinking skidoo, that's
Oh.
what I was thinking.
Yeah,
that's what I was
what else?
I already have
I don't think we could bring those to school.
But they could do it at home as well, and put it together.
Yeah, it could be that.
You know, to create.
Yeah, it could be that. You guys could decide to create some kind of lip sync for a song, and each person records, a phrase.
I hate it drift so
Yeah,
bad.
I did it.
Now they're gonna start talking about
Lucas, when my dad had an Arca, I hated drift so big that I didn't.
Alexa and Chris.
I also jumped back.
I was scared.
I felt my
Do they
skin
have
go
any
off.
ideas?
Yesterday.
I wouldn't be able to hear them if they did. Any ideas from home?
Lucas.
There was this funny.
No.
Alexa's got nothing? Chris?
I got nothing.
And Chris has nothing.
We had an idea to do, there's an
Okay.
office lift up, like recreate the office one. It's, I don't know what the song, but it's from the office.
Sure.
It's, I know what the video is.
Yeah, like it's an office Christmas thing?
You can make it up.
Yeah, sure.
Like walking mountains.
Well, this could be a quid pro quo. You could get something from the ones who don't want to, if you're willing to give something to them. No, it doesn't have to be a physical, tangible, here, I'll give you my pen. It doesn't have to be like that, obviously. But
Do you want me to?
Really holding on to.
if we use our hands to put up our hands, how many of you are willing to give it a try? If it doesn't require a lot of... Lucas, do you remember the comment I made yesterday? To you.
Yeah, I'm so lame, Lucas. I know.
I could repeat it today, but I don't want to repeat it on the recording. No?
Did you say something bad?
No, it wasn't something bad. It just was you could spend more time looking this way.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Yep.
Okay. Okay. How about we revisit this in period 5?
Yes.
Put some thought into it.
Whatever, I don't really care what happens. Yeah, me neither. Like,
You'll be.
I don't really care. Like, if I have to, I will, but if I don't have to, please don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, here's an argument that you might listen to, that there are a lot of things that you're not able to do this school year because of our restrictions. This is something interactive that you could do as a group, that you could look back fondly on. It doesn't have to be too invasive that it takes a lot of work or effort or time from each person, depending on what you decide to pick, right? And so you could think of it like that you want to try to make some good memories out of this year. And this is an opportunity to do that. And you're not doing it just for yourself. You know that it's going to be viewed and shared with your whole school community. And you can think you've benefited from other older people investing and giving something to you, entertaining you. Do you want to offer that same kind of behavior back to the little ones? Do you owe it to the school anything? I'm getting real deep and existential now.
David's face.
I won't even say what that, like, no comments. Okay, well, that's what that is. Let's talk about Play-Doh.
Play-Doh?
Yeah, there's Play-Doh on my desk actually, but no, we'll talk about this. And I'm just gonna give this to you because we don't want to spend a lot of time on it, okay? Do you know who Plato was?
He was a Greek philosopher.
There you go.
He invented this bright neon colored, like moldable clay.
No. Sam started off telling the truth and he ended up telling a lie. He believed.
Is he not Greek? Is he Roman?
He believed that people were decent. Okay? Remembering the next guy thought that people were kind of evil because they were selfish, each person for themselves. Here's someone that was different in their thinking. People were generally decent. They used their mind. And reason to make decisions, to decide how to act. So they had choices. I'm going to go like this, like F, how should we do this? FL it means a flaw in their thinking. By today's standards, okay? For example, if he said only educated people can know what's best for society, that wouldn't really fly in today's society. Because you don't have to be formally educated. People have good intuition or social skills. So there's a bit of a flaw in his thinking, but he believed that only educated people could know what was best for society.
Decide, what is the next word to say?
How to act. And here's an idea that is similar to today's society, and actually it's similar to what Jagmeet Singh was talking about in the House of Commons there recently. He said that if needs are met, people could be free. And this is something that's kind of a new thing you can think of differently. When you typically think of the word freedom, you think of I have liberty. I can walk out that door or out of the classroom. I can go wherever I want. I'm free to do that. But freedom doesn't only mean movement, right? Freedom means you can join a hockey team if you want to, because you have the resources, you have the flexibility in your time. That's freedom, right? Freedom means opportunity and choices. And so Plato did believe that if people's needs were met, then they could be free, and then they can pursue their own goals. Your dad's saying money equals freedom?
Yeah.
Money does create opportunity for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So if you look at this flawed idea by our standards today, if it was only educated people that could know what was best for society, do you think that women would have been educated at that time? So it may have really excluded a large population of society, which would have kind of been like a dictatorship of sorts, a majority making decisions for a minority, for example. So his vision for society, though, is he thought he saw great control over society. Being the answer. And the leader of that control he wanted or thought would be an absolute authority. Yeah, so a complete ruler, for example. So that's one way to view society, that people are pretty good. They'll make the fair decisions most of the time. Knowledgeable people really should be the ones relied on to make the biggest decisions. And in some ways, I mean, we do rely on, our politicians often are well educated. There's a lot of lawyers that are part of government or things like that, right? But this idea here that if needs are met, people could be free to pursue their goals, this is still a thing. This is still a valid idea. Right? If that woman didn't have to work 3 jobs, she'd have a lot more flexibility with her family. You know, she'd be making maybe the same income as those 3 jobs provide, which means she'd be paying back into society by the taxes and all of those things. So she would have more freedom if society or the government's decisions could make it happen. That's Plato. We've already talked a little bit about Hobbes, so basically, if we're going to just make it the basic points, human beings are selfish, not shellfish. Oh.
Tough crowd.
What's that?
Tough crowd.
It's a really tough crowd. I'm trying to distract them from the fact that they've just been taking notes for the whole class so far, really. They're selfish because they only want what benefits themselves. Is that a reflection of our Christmas entertainment discussion? Did you say no?
No, he said no.
I'm asking who said no.
You could say it.
I like how he
Possibly.
Have you even ran
Okay, you have to give full obedience to an absolute leader who will provide. But if you're going to agree to following an absolute leader who's going to give you what you need, which was your freedom of speech, of your religion, of your property and stuff like that, the deal here is that you cannot rebel. Okay, so that's the agreement. We're going to give you everything and protect everything, but you can't rebel. They saw a monarchy was the answer. And they were responsible only to God. Which one? Monarchy? Yep, a monarchy was the ticket. That's the ticket. That's the answer. You cannot rebel against a monarchy, meaning you can't strike, you can't protest. The monarchy will be guided by God, and so there's a fairness there. Individuals give up their individual rights. You give up. But you get protection.
So what era was Thomas Hobbes in?
He was 16 something. He was 1651, I think, which is complicated because I was saying 1600s, and I've always struggled with that. I always think 1600s because 1651, but it's all of those years were part of the 1700s because it ended. That's the end of the 17. Then the 1701 is the beginning of the 18th century. Yeah, it's. I don't understand really the rule because it's math related.
I think it's called each centuries, like it's down at like 1700s of the 18th century because there's a century from like year 1 to year 99 that existed.
Yeah.
So the year 100 was the start of the second.
Yeah, you round up from the whole thing, right? I realized it in that. So.
We're in the 21st century.
What's that?
That's why we're in the 21st.
That's right. Yeah. So currently we have some of these. This is demonstrated by the United Kingdom that has a queen, and that within your lifetime for sure, maybe the next 10 years even, we'll instead have a king. God save the king, right? Not necessarily because she'll die, but she might just pass it on and retire, right? She's the oldest serving monarchy in history, I believe.
She won't pass on until she dies.
You think she'll hold on till the very end?
She's
Yeah,
like
she'll outlast all of us
94.
too.
Yeah.
Is she 94?
She's around there. She's like 96.
I don't know that she's that old, but yeah.
She's setting something up for her
She's
granddaughter,
gonna
granddaughter,
be like,
Yeah.
to show her
Maybe
that
she'll
even
live till
women
she's
can be rulers of the country.
Right.
People
There are
still
some
get
other
back.
monarchies still, and again, we're focusing on in Europe. There are no acting monarchies or recognized monarchies in America.
Yeah, she is 94.
Is she 94?
Yeah, she was born April 21st in 1926.
Good job, Jaden.
I am.
I know she's been married for 74 years.
Yes, a long time.
That's amazing for her husband.
Well,
My.
you can make a comment about that as well because her marriage is part of the institution. She.
Her husband has to bow down.
Yeah. This is why we're only in Unit 2. Oh, it's 1:55. Oh, I didn't press start on my. So I guess when you make agreements, you have to make an agreement with someone who's honest.
1:55, I think that's 25 minutes.
Yeah, it's probably more than 25 minutes. So I can stop right now. Do you want to go into the whiteboard game, or do you just want to, I can give you your Among Us time?
Yes.
Okay. You who behave like predators. Thanks, Mrs. O. Desktop. Replace, yes. Okay. Hi.
Yeah, you're like,
No, it doesn't look like anything. Us,
Jess.
Jess.
I'm not trying to make it look like anything.
You're just about to leave here.
What? Oh my god.
Why does that almost look like a wolf?
Yeah,
Okay, this is an extra 10 minutes you're getting. But we have to shut the door because you're about to get loud.
Which way?
I do that too, but when I'm really eager to go, I just sit there.
Or a butterfly.
That's what kind of does. That I know what part I, that's what part I started with.
I used to rep the motor and warm it up.
What's the first thing I do?
Oh, it's warm. Let's go.
And then I just add it on and then do this.
I can just turn you guys around here.
I think